most of you probably won't know who Hoval are, so I thought we'd start with that, because who on earth are they? So a very brief intro into Hoval and what we're doing here. We make commercial and industrial boilers for heating and hot water. We also do indoor climate systems and energy recovery and combined heat and power units. And for those of you who've got leisure centres already, then you probably already have some Hoval equipment in it. You just won't know about it because there's not, unless you go down long into your plant room, into your boiler house. But clearly, one of the biggest costs, if you're running leisure centres or swimming pools or even bigger leisure villages, the biggest cost you've got is your running costs for your heating, lighting we heard about earlier, but heating and hot water. And things have moved on over the years, and things now are a lot more energy efficient, but also there is a big push, like everything in life, for cleaner technologies. So we're all under pressure to be a bit more carbon friendly. So the emissions that coming out of your plant room at work, or the back of your, the organisers, I'm afraid, we're running a bit late and they've got the meeting room wrong. But it's we all have carbon targets for certainly the car manufacturers. So your company cars, they say. So this is the angle that now the pressure is coming on. So just to give you some perspective as to who we are and our type of clients over the years, very quickly, but you can see there, Hodstock Priory, the Grade 1 listed mansion in Nottinghamshire, so the Titanic building in Belfast, and then across the bottom you can see some of the more prestigious sites that we have. Please take a seat. And so most of the royal palaces and some of their private properties we also supply and service. And Central St Giles, you think that's an odd looking building, that's known as the Marmite building, that is in London. And the reason that's on there was at one time, I don't know whether it still is, that was the biggest biomass installation in London. And we put that in a few years ago. So that just gives you a bit of a random look. So for other sporting facilities, we are in all of the Premiership football clubs. I've put Manchester City up there. We are in Manchester United. I just couldn't bring myself to put it on the presentation. But yes, all the Premiership football clubs, most of the Championship football clubs, all of the national football stadiums and all the national rugby stadiums, also powered by Hoval. And you can see the Wembley there, we were also in Old Wembley. And the one alongside that, for those of you who are into tennis, that is Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Association. And we have all the boilers in there. And the top right is Velodrome, Derby Velodrome, and the David Hoy one in Scotland and one or two others. But just to give you, we've had quite a broad experience on various types of sports and leisure references. A little bit more specific. That is, for those of you who've been, centre parks. So we supply all the boilers and CHP into centre parks. Now their criteria obviously is heating, but also they have a huge water park, so they supply the water for and that is done via CHP. That is a brand new sports village, been revamped in the middle of Nottingham, Harvey Haddon. The old place was an absolute disaster. It was a dreadful looking place anyway. The council spent some money, and that is a brand new sports village, which we've just supplied to. But then things like Rebecca Adlington swimming pool, again as happens, that was a biomass installation that was done just after she won the gold medal. But rather nice swimming pools, down to, let's call it, the more challenging ones, which you won't get me swimming at. But again, just to give you an idea of the sort of technologies and the services that we can provide. So, who are we? Very quickly, you'll notice from that we're 131 years old this year. We in Nottinghamshire, Newark in Nottinghamshire. We started in 1887, and the Hoval brand was in 1945 from Liechtenstein. And for those of you who don't know where Liechtenstein is, it's not a third world country. It sits up in the mountains between Switzerland and Austria. It's 30 miles long, 3 miles wide, most of it uphill. But Hoval brand comes from Austria. They came and bought what was Farrow Boiler Works in 1960. In 1985, we were given the contract to supply Buckingham Palace, and then in 1986 we got the one for Windsor Castle. And then since then we've done lots of the other ones. So we were given the Royal Warrant as Her Majesty's Boilermakers Engineers in 1990, and have kept it ever since. And so that for us is, people go, oh, if you're supplying the Queen, you must be expensive. Well, let's say that if you only get one order once every 40 years, most of your business is not through the royal family. You have to be competitive in a competitive marketplace. It just so happens that that is obviously for us is a, you know, you can't get a better reference site than that. And then we did a few years ago put in a new heat recovery production line in our factory in Newark. But you can see there the old photographs. Everything that we sell, we make. We are traditional manufacturers. The flat plate comes in and we build stuff and we supply it, install it and service it thereafter. So that's where we are around the world. Those with the asterisks on it is where we have production plants. And that is the brand values that have been like that for about 50 years. So you see the main board is made up of Swiss engineers and bankers and lawyers. And Switzerland, as everybody knows, are very much into the energy and the environment, so we have to fall in line with that. However, what you're here about is the leisure side of it, that we have two sides of the business that supply into the leisure centre business. Heating technology on the left, so we'll have a quick look at that. We supply and make heat pumps, air source, ground source heat pumps. Mainly in the UK, it's air source heat pumps. We don't do anything in the way of ground source heat pumps. It doesn't seem to have taken off quite so well in the UK, but in Switzerland and Austria and places like that, there's a big marketplace for it. Biomass boilers. We make wood pellet boilers. Wood chip we've tried over the years, and we find it's a little bit too challenging for most clients in that, one, you've got to have your wood chip. The wood chip needs to be absolutely standard on every delivery, otherwise you're having to change the combustion process in the boiler. And they are a lot more hands-on when it comes down to cleaning them out. Wood pellet boilers tend just to work, and they take a lot less maintenance. Because at the end of the day, what you guys need to be doing is looking after your building, which is a leisure centre, getting people through the door. What you don't want to be doing is running back down to the boiler house, cleaning the boiler out every day. It's a bit like being at home. The only time you ever notice your boiler at home is when it stops working. And you just want something that works. So we came at biomass from a slightly different angle in that we made a lot of coal boilers over the years, based in Nottinghamshire. Clearly we were in the Nottinghamshire coalfield. And coal, like biomass, is a solid fuel. It's nothing spooky, there's no black art to it, it's a solid fuel. It's not an oil, it's not a liquid, it's not a gas, it's a solid fuel. And the principles of coal apply to the principles of biomass. The efficiency of the boiler changes, the calorific value of the fuel changes, and the control changes. But the principle of having a big area to store your fuel, and then you've got to get your fuel from there into the boiler, and the boiler effectively is a big bit of steel that heats up hot water. Those are exactly the same. So that's how you work it, and they just work. We've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and they just chug along. You know, there's nothing too onerous in there. However, the biomass side of the business has died off quite a bit because the renewable heat incentive has been withdrawn from the government, or almost to the point it's been withdrawn down to, I think, 2 pence a kilowatt hour, which makes it not very attractive. So prior to that, there's a lot of money that came in from Europe. And strangely, we supplied more boilers before the RHI than during the RHI. But we've done a lot of schools and colleges and prisons and bits and pieces for that. We're still very much a nation of gas burning boilers, and the state-of-the-art stuff is gas condensing. Been around for a little while, either wall hung or freestanding. We'll talk about those a little bit later. And then obviously oil technology with oil condensing boilers, now getting down to low sulfur oil to restrict the emissions Solar panels. We make solar panels. We have our own factory in Liechtenstein making solar panels. And the hot water systems, hot water generators. So when you've got showers or hand basins, you need somewhere that's going to produce your hot water, and we manufacture those too. The bit that is getting a lot more prevalent in the marketplace on designs and requirement from local planning officers is generating your own electricity on site. So combined heat and power. So that is getting to be a big business for us, and we manufacture those. And those tend to link in with the district heating. So I'll show you a diagram of a typical district heating scheme. So just as a, I won't get into too much detail on the engineering, because I'm sure you guys really want to get involved with that. But if you do, then come and see us afterwards. But that on the left is a cutout of a gas condensing boiler, and that is what's called a premix burner on the top. And it's a bit like, if you think about the fuel system in your car, your injection system, that is gas and air mixed outside of the boiler to absolutely the fine art, so that you get in a perfect mix of gas and air blown into the boilers. And you see some downfine stuff, but that is to reduce the NOx and to increase the efficiency. Condensing just means that when the heat goes out the chimney, there are some, instead of having the heat going out the chimney, we're able to take that heat out of that gases and reintroduce it into the boiler, so you end up with a super efficient boiler. Bit on your right hand side there, I think that might be the new headquarters for Goldman Sachs building, but those are very big boilers in there, and we get all excited about that sort of stuff. We don't get out very much, but that's pretty big boilers in there. Okay, so combined heat and power, what is that? You'll hear that term quite a bit, CHP. Effectively, what you've got in there is an engine. It's a big old engine, runs off gas. But effectively, if you think about that being a lorry engine, next to that is a generator, and that will supply the electricity for the leisure centre. As a consequence of running your engine, it's a bit like in your car, you've got a radiator that gets hot water in it, and you get that for free because the engine's running. So it generates electricity, you then get the hot water supply, so this takes over what would be a traditional boiler. So when you're then looking for, if you're building a new leisure centre or you're going to upgrade, often, and especially down in London, there'll be a restriction from the planners that said you must generate a certain proportion of your electricity on site. And that's the type of unit that you need to generate the electricity on site. And again, super efficient type stuff. Linking with that, this is how your hot water is generated for your showers and hot water at the taps. The inside of that has all your cold water coming in, and the outside of it has the boiler water coming in, and it's a very fast, quick reacting turnaround of hot water. So if you go into gyms like EW Sports or David Lloyd, places like that, they will have the Hoval boilers linked in to one of those clarifiers, and we can turn 10,000 litres round in an hour. So where you've got a gym or leisure centre where you have big dollops of water needed all in one go, or like a hotel where mostly you've got say an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half at night time, where most people come in and have a bath or a shower. The one thing you cannot do is run out of hot water. You can't go to a 4 or 5 star hotel and turn the tap on and there's somebody using all the hot water up. Absolutely criminal. So that's the type of unit that's used by a lot of the hotel groups and the leisure centres, because you need, you could get 10, 15, 20, 30 people all having a shower at the end of a gym session. Again, you can't run out of hot water. That's a smaller unit there for something a little bit smaller. So if you're doing like a doctor's surgery or something like that, there's a smaller version of it. But those are all linked in with either the high efficiency, low emission gas condensing boilers, or the more traditional pressure jet type units. But I say, if you go into most of the national chains of gyms, that's what they have. District heating and CHP. To come back to the leisure village. So what you have there is a central plant room. And that will supply, let's say for instance, a set of apartments here, a couple of houses, and you saw when we were looking just before lunch, where they were showing you the big leisure centre where you've got the doctor's surgery in there, and there may be a police station in there, or there's a school, or there's some shops or whatever it is. That is typically what you would use to heat all of them. You'll find that the days of every Englishman's home is his castle, and I've got my own little central heating system, is starting to dwindle. If you now go into some of the smart apartment blocks that are being built in London, they will have a central plant room like that in the basement. Then there is a riser that goes off, and all the apartments have all their heating and hot water tapped off it. So for instance, the one that we finished looks really, really smart. So is that number 1 Blackfriars? Have you seen number 1 Blackfriars? The big silver tower? But that was all the apartment blocks. The apartments went there for millions. But they don't have their own heating boiler. They run off a district heating system. And this, on the continent, is what they've been doing for 50 years. You go to Germany or Switzerland or wherever it is, they all have this type of stuff. They don't have individual boilers. If you've got apartment blocks, they have a central plant room in the basement. So in that basement there is CHP, so you're generating the electricity for all this, and you're also generating the heating and hot water for it. That is a little transfer station. So you have one of those at the entrance to all to your apartment, and that tells you how much energy you've used per kilowatt hour in either hot water or heating. And you then, that is linked to a central computer, and then the client presses a button, and then you get your bill every month. But you don't have to maintain everything. Everything is done for you. And that is the clarifier, as I say, for the hot water. So there's quite a lot of planning applications in at the moment for new villages or industrial estates. And to get the planning permission for the industrial estates, they're adding in, oh, by the way, we'll build you 2,000 houses. We'll build you a new village. And in there, we'll put a new school and a doctor's surgery and a couple of shops and bits and pieces. And they will be run off central plant rooms. So we have that expertise within Hoval, but that, as I say, could be, you know, a big swimming pool, a big gymnasium, a leisure facility, and like we were saying earlier, the doctor's surgery added into it, or the health centre, or whatever, it just keeps going out. So you can get them as big as you like. So climate technology. This is about the environment of air and heat recovery. So this unit here is, let's say, if you've got a swimming pool, you could put that in the changing rooms. And what happens with that is your cold air comes in here, goes through that heat exchanger, picks up the heat inside there, and that goes off around the changing room heating system. And it comes all the way back round, and then it goes back down there, and it goes back through there, but it's filtered at the same time. So it cleans the air and it stops the smells. And at the same time, if there is a requirement for humidity, we can remix the humidity back in, and that then goes out to atmosphere. So that gives you absolutely lovely fresh air. So if you've got a small workout room, a small gym, small exercise area inside a gym, I walked into one the other week and it's incredible, of sweaty bodies and all the rest of it. Wow, really off-putting. You know, I'm sure we've all been there. Put one of those in there and it takes that out and it gives you lovely fresh air. And on the continent and in the UK, we're starting to get a lot of people build these into high-end houses. Because, you know, and they sell them on the continent because they sell it through the fact that your child will have a lovely fresh environment inside the house. So if you put one of those and you have one of the outlet units into your kitchen and you cooking a curry, by the time that heat comes back round again, the smell's gone. I have a client who lives not too far from here, just round the corner from Harrods, who is looking to have one of those in his smoking room. Not sure how many people have got a smoking room, but he likes expensive cigars, and his wife and family absolutely hate the smell of it, so he's putting that into his smoking room and it takes the smell out. But that is about energy recovery, so we are taking the heat, instead of it just going out to atmosphere by opening the window or putting it up the chimney, we'll reuse that heat, clean the air, put it back in again. So obviously, clearly, it costs you a lot less to heat because the boiler's not on quite so long. So indoor climate systems, talking about heating up large areas, volume of air. You can see here there's leisure centres and schools, big supermarkets, big warehouses, that type of thing. So what does the customer need? He needs clean air. And on a traditional type system, those are your ducts. And that air gets quite dusty because the dust sits in there. So when it's pushing out the air to warm everything, everything gets dusty. Or if that is a, let's say, a CNC plant or a machine or something in there, it picks up the atmosphere that's coming out of that, and it just all it does is redirects it around here. So the air is not very clean. Not very flexible either, because all you've got is one unit. And if that breaks down, that's it, you're stuffed. So if you imagine that from a leisure centre point of view, let's take all that out, and you put your badminton courts or something in there, it's the same principle. Low running costs, well, you can see there, which is a thermography photograph, all the heat's sat in. And this is the cold area, because as we all know, hot air rises, it's going to sit in there. So unless it gets sucked into that, pushed back down again, it's not going to happen. So they're not very cost effective. But this is old stuff, this is old technology. The new stuff looks like this. And what it does, it is individual units that are either side of the roof space, and they can either be purely recirc air, and what they do, that little unit there is a fan, and you can change all the angle of that. So what it does, all the fresh air, and all the heating, sorry, is pushed down through there. And we are able to recover the heat, like we were talking about the other unit. So when it comes back in, we take the heat out of it, blend it with the fresh air, and put it back in. So if that unit there would just supply that, and that unit there would supply the other bit. But if that was two separate rooms, clearly you could sectionalise that, or you could put 4 or 5 in. That's the boiler house, that is your hot water clarifier, that is your underfloor heating, and that's all supplied. The heating is supplied by the boiler there. You could have HomeVent units, like we were talking about earlier, they could be separate. So if you're not using that, you're not using that, but you're going to use that, you only need to heat that. So these can be either linked to, you can see up there, a reversible heat pump, so you can actually use it for cooling. It doesn't have to be heating, but you can use it for cooling. And often in a gym, if it gets hot, cooling is a big issue. But if at the same time you're recovering the heat and you're cleaning the atmosphere, you're getting a lot fresher feel in the air for the users. Applications, this is just a general thing. The bit in there you see is the sports centres and multi-purpose. So you can see the units in here. And that gives you a really, really beautiful heat profile in all of those. And not that you ever look up in a supermarket, but that's, you'll see there's quite a few of these type things in supermarkets as well. Now, from a Hoval perspective and from the client's point of view, we have something called a system calculator. So let's say we were talking about the leisure centres being 20, 30, 40 years old, and you want to do something with it, you can either revamp it or whatever. What we're able to do is to take some of your information that you're able to supply us in the way of data on how much you spent, how much you paid on your gas and your electricity, how much tons of carbon you're producing, and we can work that out and say, right, this is currently what you've got, and this, if you put in a CHP engine and a gas boiler, this is what the profile now looks like. So your heating and electricity loading comes down, because obviously you get a new kit in there, but we're able to calculate that. And and look at the ratio that you need on your electric and gas, because generally there will be a gas backup in here, because what you don't want to do is to say, right, I want to size my CHP to take all my electrical load out, because if you remember, not only are you generating electricity, but you're generating an awful lot of hot water. You generate more hot water than you do electricity. So you've got a big bulk of the hot water that you're going to end up not using and end up dumping, which is clearly not very environmentally friendly. So what you need to do is you size the electrical load for your, as a base load. So if you need to top it up, then you've got another, and that could be a heat pump, for instance. But you need another energy source then just to take the peaks and troughs out of it. But all that we can do, you work out all your, your payback periods and all that sort of stuff. So it's really a software package that we're able to produce, and just doing a site visit with a bit of information, we come around and go, right, okay, let's have a look at the leisure centre. We've had a request today for one in the north. Come down, do a site survey. We've got some information on what we pay for our bills and see what it would be, what the costing would be to swap to more efficient boilers and some CHP. And we take into account what the cost of the product is, what a typical cost of the installation is, and what typical running costs are in the way of maintenance. And that then gives you your payback brief on there. But that is sort of just a piece of software that Hoval has, doesn't cost anything other than the price of a cup of tea for the guy who turns up to do it. So what we are able to do as manufacturers, coming back to what we would do before, we have some technical guys out on the road. We've got 12 of those, but we have guys a lot more on the technical, which is Jeff, who's based down here. One of my colleagues, Lawrence, who's with me today, he is our specialist on indoor climate systems. And then obviously we've got internal stuff as well as. From a servicing point of view, we employ all our own service engineers. We don't sub anything out. So everything that comes through Hoval, we make ourselves and we service it ourselves. So we can give guidance and support pre-sale in the way of not just the calculation on the cost, but also on the design. Obviously, the service engineers, we can help with the implementation of that. Obviously, after sales and long-term service contracts. So all of that we can do in-house. But also, when it gets to bigger projects, so if you've got a big scheme running, we are able to build all this off-site. So we have some clients where they are building, we've got a couple of them at the moment, where they're building some big tower blocks for apartments. The first 2 floors are commercial, the bottom floor is mainly retail, but at the back end of it, half the building at the bottom is a gym. So we're separating that out. But what they're able to do is to get on with building the structure. We build off-site, so when they have a secure site, we just wheel these in. See, these are all individual skids, so we do all this. This is the top of the pipe work for all the boilers in there, and the CHP and the hot water clarified. All of this is piped up and wired up off-site. We then wheel it in, connect the planters up, plug it in, away you go. We haven't got any security issues, because clients do have issues where you wouldn't believe that people go onto building sites and nick kit. I find it hard to believe. But this is a secure way of doing it. We build everything off-site for them, and then it's just wheeled in. Likewise, on the smaller skid units here, so if you were doing, let's say, a small gym or a big gym, a swimming pool, we can do a multitude of these type of things. So all of this you can see there, that's all piped up, all pre-wired, all the pressurisation is in. You just pick what you want, again, that's built off-site, kept in Newark until you're ready. So if you've got a client who said, look, we can't afford to have the heat and hot water system down for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever it is for you guys to come in and put all the gear in, we need it closed in the morning, and I need it running the following morning. We just can't afford to shut down. So we make all this off-site, pick the day, right, that's it, take all the stuff, all the other stuff comes out, all of this stuff again is wheeled in, there's a flow and return connection, chimney, controls, power, press the button, there you go, like a plug and play unit. But that cuts down on the time on site that's needed. this is an interesting job. This just goes to show what the flexibility that we have. And unbeknown to me, that about there in the water and about there in the water is a boiler house. And we were contacted a few months ago by the people who run the FM in here, and I didn't know, but there are apartments in there, and there's restaurants and all sorts. I think the leader of the House of Lords has an apartment in Tower Bridge. But the guy said, look, we've got these boilers, they're ancient, they fallen over years ago, they're not running, we're having a big refurb, spending a lot of money refurbing it. What we want you to do is come and have a look to see if you can replace these boilers, but access is an issue. So we go along, one of my colleagues has been with us for many, many years, you walk along here, and then you go all the way down there. Sure enough, there's two boilers in the basement. And we said, right, that boiler needs to come out, and the only way out is the way you come in. Likewise, if you're going to put a new boiler in, that's going to come in the same way. Can it be done? Well, we can. It's a bit of a faff, to be honest, but we can do it. We can get oxyacetylene, put it all into pieces, hand carry it up to the surface, and likewise we'll cut the steel for the boilers in the factory, and then take it IKEA style down to the basement, and we'd actually build the boiler in the basement. So weld it up and pressure test it and do everything in the basement. And he said, oh, fantastic, give me a price for that. So we gave him a price for that, and then he gave us the order, and then he said, I'll tell you now, you've got the order. You were the only company that said yes. Oh, right. Anyway, so, but you can see here, the staircase all the way down to the bottom, and what we did, we took it all down, got the guys from the factory, the welders, to cut it all up and weld it all inside, pressure test it, and fire it up. And it's having that ability to hand-build bespoke stuff, which means we get a lot of specialist work. It's a bit weird or a bit quirky, whatever it is. Give Hoval a ring, because we still have guys who hand-build product. So that just gives you a bit of idea on our scope. We also are able to offer full design stuff. This is a very, very simple hydraulic schematic of a system. You know, you saw earlier there was lots of boilers on one system with some huge headers out here. All of this needs to be designed properly, so all the flow and return temperatures and pressures and all that sort of stuff all needs calculating out. We're able to do that in-house with one of our team that we partner with. So again, we can do that as for a client for the whole package. But also, you know, there's possibility of looking at different finance packages. Because often clients don't have that money up front, and they've got to, if they're going to do that, they need to find some kind of capital to do that. And we have people who we can put them in touch with who can do that over a 10 or 20 year package, which includes not just the supply, but the energy supply and the ongoing maintenance. So it's as a summary, we can build the products, do the design, including a full capital design. There are some finance packages that we can arrange. We can do the installation, commissioning, and the servicing. And we have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of swimming pools and leisure centres over the years. When you've been around it for 30 years, you tend to pick up quite a lot of those. So that really is what we can do and what we do. So if you have any sites that are of interest and you would like somebody just to come along and have a look and use that system calculator to look at the various options that are open to you, so it costs a couple